Hello and welcome back to another episode of Zero BS Estate Agency. Now, most sellers think that they are choosing an estate agent when they're going to market. They're not. They're choosing a contract, a long tie-in, a comforting valuation, and a promise that sounds good enough to stop them from asking better questions. And in today's episode, I'm joined by Paul Childs of Keller Williams. And this is one of those conversations that pulls back the curtain. We talk about why sellers default to high street brands, why overpricing isn't optimism, it's actually risk avoidance, and why so many agents aren't actually trying to sell houses at all, they're trying to secure certainty for themselves. This isn't anti-high street, and it's certainly not a recruitment pitch for the self-employed models. It's a real conversation between two agents that carry the risk, that do the graft, and live with the consequences when things go wrong. This is episode 75. I'm interviewing Paul Childs, and the uncomfortable truth about why agents sell contracts and not houses. So, Paul, when you and I first spoke, you were early on in your self-employed journey. Looking back now, what was the biggest misconception you had about going alone?
I think the biggest misconception, well, not misconception, but the thought process, it would be a lot easier. You think, you tell the world what you're doing and everyone's going to come knocking at your door. And I think that's kind of the misconception of it all, and the graft you have to put into it to make it a success. I think what's the biggest challenge is competing with an antiquated model, the high street model, while you're trying to bring in something new and you're trying to disrupt the industry a little bit. And it's trying to convert those sellers into believing what we offer is actually genuine. I think that belief is that, if you want to buy a pint of milk, you go down to the big supermarket, it's going to get the best price, most variety. But actually behind the scenes, it's the supermarkets that are screwing the suppliers. They're being really harsh and shrewd and not the personable touch. And I think that's what it is. It's if I could place a seller, if I can let them see what the end result is, they can actually feel that end result, then we would be winning much more business because it's the journey we take them on.
Yeah. Why do you think those sellers still run with the high street and the corporates?
Your average seller will sell a house 2 times in their life. It's the fear of the unknown. I think they're scared, and also when they speak to an estate agent, they'll believe what they say. The hook of what they give them to what the end result is. The promise of active buyers on their database. But Mr. Seller, please sign a 16-week contract. They go, well, if they've got buyers, I really want the buyers. I don't really worry about the 16-week contract because if they've got the buyers, we'll have it sold in 4 weeks. Where actually, if you've got the active buyers, you shouldn't sign a 60-week contract. If you've got the active buyers, you should have brought them round to the valuation and sold them the house at that point and charged a 2% fee. Hit the hammer on the nail right, you would pay for that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest misconception is what they're told. And as you rightly say, it's that contract. They're selling a contract. They're not trying to sell you a house. They're trying to sell you that contract. And that person who's valuing your property is going to be the different person who's selling your property. And that's the biggest difference.
What would you say then? So, for example, because I think a lot of sellers fall into the trap of exactly what you just said then, right? So the agent is selling money, they're selling a contract. But the seller either goes, right, so I've got 450 grand to spend. Real money's 400. I've got 450 grand to spend because 3 agents have told me so, not realizing that those 3 agents have all had conversations with their colleagues to say, what do you think the other agent's going to say? So they're not actually running with evidence-based. So you and I know that, right?
Yeah.
But from a seller's perspective, they've got 450 grand.
Yeah.
So they're already buying and making plans for the next purchase and the holiday that they're going to have and the debts that they're going to pay off. But also there are other sellers that they need a certain amount.
Yeah.
And they convince themselves that what the agent said is true and legitimate and actually works and will give them the money that they need in order to move. What would you say in that instance if a seller was like, well, I need this, but you know it wasn't real?
I think I've got a property on the market in that current situation, and you know, my job is, I'm not a judge and jury. My job is to advise my clients, and also it's their house, and I always believe it's their house. They can do whatever they want with their house. If they want to charge if it's worth 500, they want to sell it for 600. That it's fine, but I will put the expectations in front of them, going, if that's what you want to do, this is what's going to happen. We will know very quickly within 2 weeks if you've got it right or got it wrong, because if you put it on that price and the phone doesn't ring within the first 48 hours, you've got it wrong. Then it's a conversation that we need to make a price adjustment to be more realistic. This is the biggest problem I get, is I go in to do a valuation and the other estate agent has overvalued the property. They're anchored up there. The property I've got at the minute is a divorce situation. So obviously money is sensitive. I put a fair market value on the property. The other estate agent put 50 grand more than me. And I kind of said, look, this is the situation. Putting it at this price, we'll get more people through the door and we'll get close to the 750 or 725 where they want to achieve. But again, the fear of the unknown and the scaredness. If someone said 750, they go, well, we'll put it on for 750, but we'll accept 725. But my conversation is, well, if we put it on 700 and get 10 people through the door, we'll probably get more of a chance to get you 725 than at 750. Because at 750, we might be getting offers at 700. So, the market has shifted from last year as well, and buyers are putting cheeky offers in where they can because they feel that's where the market is. But it's the agent and the negotiation skills of holding the ground to get the best value for our clients. My job is not to get an offer and then persuade my seller to sell at that price. I might say, it's not we can get more money for this property. Don't take that offer. So being self-employed and working for our clients very personally, we have those conversations, these frank conversations. And again, when an offer's put on the table, who is that agent working for? Are they working for the commission or are they working for the client? And I think this is the two things. For us, for me, I'm 100% working for my client, not working for a commission.
Yeah, but actually that leads nicely onto another question I wanted to ask you, which is a high street agent, right? They still trade heavily on brand and on shop front. And from where you sit right now, where do they genuinely win and where are they badly exposed?
They generally win, and sometimes you get it right, but then sometimes you get a client who is motivated to sell and they will price it correctly, or the property it will sell itself. Some houses sell themselves. They're unique one-offs. You put them on the market, bit of a trophy sale that you don't need to work to get it sold. And I think, that's an easy win for everyone. It's the hard ones. And I think the hard ones is where their weak spot is, because without having that personal approach, without, looking at the feedback of that property, without having frank conversations with your clients, they hang around. And what I find is that these sellers sit with these agents and sit with them. I had a conversation with one of my neighbours who was on with one agent, went on with another agent, has now gone back to the original agent. Now, the conversation I had with her is like, why are you doing that? She goes, well, they sold it for me 3 times. And I was like, well, and I sort of didn't have we trust him. We love the agent. They sold it for us last time 3 times. Well, it never went through, so they didn't sell it, but they're gone back to him. And I think they say the challenges they've got there is, like I say, is the only way they can keep that client on board is by dropping their price. There's nothing else they can do about sort of looking at the marketing, new photos, more social media presence, working with other agents, going out to the local agents, going, look, I've got this property, if you've got buyers, bring it to my door and I'll pay you a referral fee.
Mm.
Give up some of that commission. Um, you know, 50% of something is better than nothing.
But in my experience, they don't want to help in that instance.
No, they don't want to help because it's unknown to them. It's a bit of a. I think you've got to. Well, with us, we're building a personal brand, and our personal brand, and my ethics of my business is, my job is to get my client's house sold by whatever means. So I'll turn around to an agent, look, if you bring a buyer to the door, you can take all the glory to shout to the houses that I've sold this house, because I full know what I've done for my client, and they're the ones that bring me my business. My business is highly referral driven, and all the referrals that are coming through, is a testament of this. And I think that's another key thing. Where your business started, you think you're going to walk the streets, put flyers through doors. The hardest challenge is getting those first few sales, because that's where the good business comes from, is those referrals.
When I think you've said about like 2026 being a turning point for self-employed agencies and brokerage models in the UK.
Yeah.
What's changed and why now?
It's technology. I think we're in a different world. I think AI is driving things so fast at the minute. Things are changing so fast. Local knowledge is not the priority, because the information is so openly available to buyers and sellers. They'll go out. There's so many apps and websites that will give you valuation, tell you what house is worth, everything. They can do a lot of their own due diligence. I think what's happening is it's the brand strength, it's the personal approach, it's working one-to-one with an agent, someone who's holding their hands, because all the knowledge around them, someone needs to give them the real facts, because they'll go off to Zoopla and get, my house is worth this much, but there's nothing underpinning that. It's a bit of algorithm that's saying, right, your house based around all the houses that have sold is worth this much. Actually, we've got software that if we can refine that down to a much more exact price. So that's where it's happening. And I think AI is pushing things. We've got Google already now scraping the internet for properties for sale. They've just launched that. So the portals are going to lose strength in what they're doing. The reliability of them, I look at the portals as an access to their database. So when I launch a property, it goes out to their database, and 72 hours is the most. That's the most efficient time. I'll get all the leads that come through, and then they start trickling off. And I've experienced this. I've just co-brokered another listing with someone that it struggled with the listing that we had on Rightmove. The co-brokers listed it on their accounts, and I've got 4 viewings on the property because they never saw it, because they're only on the alerts. They don't check Rightmove. So where we are at the minute is the collaborative side of things, and how agents need to work more and more and more, and working with the technology, because the smaller estate agents who've relied on their database, their shop on the high street, technology is going to overtake them. Yeah. And actually aligning their business with a brand like EXP, like Keller Williams, who are selling more and more properties than the big high street agencies, you're aligning yourself with a business that gives you national reach, international reach. And I believe now the opportunity for an agent to start selling international property is becoming more achievable as well, because again, the information is available. So as an agent, or as a Keller Williams agent, I can sell a house in Marbella because I've got one of my associates I can do referral business with and do that. So you're putting strings to your bow, you're hyper local, you're running a business, but the opportunities is that that person in your community might want to buy a second property in Spain or Dubai or somewhere like this, because you're building a relationship with that person. They know what you're doing, then they can speak to their friends. And it's that thing. I think we are seen as purely transactional in this country. And whereas where I've sold in 22 countries over the last 18 years, and 6 years in the States. I mean, in the States, it's all about relationships and holding that relationship and being that person's go-to for the next 10, 20 years if you wanted it to be. You know, you go to your mortgage broker, you go to your financial advisor, you stick with them because you trust and believe them.
Mm.
You don't go back to your estate agent. You don't go back to your estate agent. You go back to the estate agent that gives you the biggest promises with the lowest fees.
Yeah, so I completely subscribe to that. So when I've left, I remember one of my colleagues told me after I left the high street, and she said to me, she said, honestly, your phone would not stop ringing for people, because obviously I left the phone back in the office phone, did not stop calling asking for John.
Yeah.
Not stop calling asking for John. So I think to your point, it sort of endorses what you're saying in terms of building that relationship, and it's less and less and less about the brand on the high street. And don't get me wrong, I think the high street has a fantastic place. If you're new to the industry, you want to get into it, you're going to cut your teeth for a couple of years in the high street, in a brand, whether it's independent or corporate. The only problem is with that is that it's like a needle in a haystack, and you can end up meeting a branch manager who is a complete prick.
Yeah.
Or you can meet a lister who is the biggest overvaluing dickhead in the world, and you're not going to earn any money and you're not going to learn anything. So you obviously have to be very coy and cautious about who you jump into bed with. And I know there's some amazing brands out there, independents. For example, Perry Power, amazing. Nick Cheshire, amazing, right? There are so many. But again, if you're an agent, because I find a lot of agents, when they get into the industry for the right reasons, end up floating off into a different industry because of their manager, or because of the ethos of that brand was purely to say anything you needed to say to win that instruction.
Yeah.
But what sort of, do we have the best of both worlds as a self-employed agent? Do we have the best of both worlds? Or, going back to your original point you made early in this podcast episode, you have to work blinking hard, right? So is it the best of both worlds? Because no one's paying you a salary. No one's knocking at your door asking about what have you met your KPIs this week. You are pushing water constantly uphill. So is it working within as a self-employed agent? Do you have the best of both worlds?
I think it takes a certain person to do what we do. Let's be frank about that. You know, it's not made for everyone. I think you have to have an entrepreneurial spirit, and you have to have a bit of self-belief that you're going to make it, because you could quite easily burn a lot of money trying to do this. But if you're driven, and I feel that the next generation of estate agents, is going to be very, very different. And I think, yes, it is hard, but if you want to go this route, there are people who've walked the walk already, like us, where for me, you go through if you enter through the high street agency to learn to cut your teeth, like you say, the learned behavior will come with it, and it comes from the top down. Where you'll come in a self-employed model, you're on a even playing field with everyone. There's no hierarchy of what we're doing, and the support and the knowledge is there. We are mentors to the people we're introducing into the business. And it sounds a bit, whatever, but I believe that if we can bring those people through and train them with the best or the way to do things differently, things will start to make a shift. And even now, like I say, so if you went into these smaller estate agents, the independent little single estate agents have been on the high street for the last 20, 30 years, offering what we offer, the support. And not just the support, say, well, we've got agents now all nationwide, we can cover, we can sell anything you want. It's the support you're going to give them. All these people around you. If you've got a problem, you pick up the phone and go, I've got a problem because someone help me. Yeah, I can help you. I've got a property for sale. Okay, I'll stick it on my date. Everyone's going to help everyone. And everyone's going to benefit from this. And it comes down to fees as well at the end of the day. Because high street somehow don't want to raise their fees, and they'll slash their fees down. That's why people don't want to share. If we're selling it, if the value what we're offering is a 2% value, a 2% of value of 2%, then you're able to give away referral fees to people because everyone's still earning decent money.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're so right. I don't see myself as an estate agent.
No.
I've never seen myself as an estate agent. I see myself as a project manager. And well, if I'm a project manager, then as any good project manager will have is milestones and deadlines and the target is not get the instruction. The target is, can I sell that house? Can I maximize the value of that house? If so, how am I going to do it? And what are the milestones in between that I need to hit to make sure that I'm properly project managing, not just from before it comes to market, but during it's on the market. And then once it goes under offer, because that's, of course, if that's not handled with care, then it's not in the right hands, then it's absolutely dangerous. But what would you say is the one hard truth that anyone thinking about, I don't know, I'm thinking about becoming self-employed. I don't like the boss man in the office. And actually, I think I can back myself. What is, though, before they make that decision, what is the one hard truth that they need to hear, do you think?
It's all on your shoulders. You know, if you make it, there's no one you can blame if it doesn't go right. So, like you say, having those markers in place and having a clear, defined strategy when you sit down with that prospective seller, that's how I sell myself. I'll go into a valuation and we'll go, right, this is what I'm going to do in the next 30 days when I launch a property. This is what I do. I launch on Monday to my database, onto social media. I don't go onto the portals. I don't show reliance on the portals. Then I roll it out onto the portals, and no one, like the same, we've talked about this before, no one sees the property for 2 weeks. It sits on there. You qualify everyone down. It's a filtering system, and the way I market as well is a filtering system. I do a lot with my marketing, photos, the videos. I do the virtual tours. I throw everything at it because when that phone rings, I speak to that person. I know that they're partially down, already sort of 60%, 70% there. So you have to have these processes to filter, because I don't want people picking up the phone and just want to tie kick the property. I want people to come in knowing that like you say, anyone can come and view the property. I have no problem with that. But the information I've given them prior to that viewing, I will know if they're a serious buyer, which then turns into that, right, 30 days. Within 30 days, we'll know if your house has been priced right. If we need to make any adjustments, we need to do it now and not adjust. So, going back to it, it is on your shoulders. You have to have a very strict process. And I'm constantly learning. I'm literally, it evolves itself. And then I'll get to a point where it's not working. I'll stop and get frustrated. And it's possibly I just need to tweak something. So you'll always be developing that business. And also you're right. Whilst you're selling, you've got to be generating business, and you quite easily be pulled away if you're selling a property and forget about the lead gen, which I do a lot. And then I come to a stage where I've got no properties on the market and I've got no people picking up the phone. And that's what the big balance. And so the other option is how do you grow your business? Some people don't, like me, I don't want to start hiring people. I don't want to expand my business to the extent where I can, very differently, where I'm helping recruit below me and nurture the next best agents through me. That's kind of where I'm next stepping to. But if you're starting on your own, it's on your shoulders. But if you're working with a brokerage, the support is there, the systems, the processes, the technology, all the stuff that you would have to do yourself has already been tested, tried, and is given to you with the full support of someone in that business.
And also, I think that can kill momentum, right? Because if you're thinking to yourself, well, I've got to do all my own marketing, I've got to do all my own videos, I've got to do all my own photography, I've got to create the website, I've got to subscribe to Rightmove, Zoopla, and On the Market, and a prime location, wherever else, and it's going to cost me an absolute fortune, right? Mm-hmm. That is the beauty of the self-employed model, in the sense that of the website set up. The CRM is already there for me. Yeah. The AML scenario, all I need to do is put in the detail. I'm obviously managing a hell of a lot, But again, it's those things. I'm not having to reinvent the wheel. And I think one of the things that's really important as well is having a mentor or having people that you know. For example, you're Keller Williams, I'm EXP, yet you and I speak. Yeah, you and I would easily invite each other if it's right and fair.
Yeah.
Then we're going to share the spoils, because it's not about us. It's about the seller getting moved, because we know that ultimately is going to future-proof our business, because we're going to get a really good review off the back of that.
Yeah.
Plus also the referrals, right?
Yeah.
So I think in terms of momentum, you can easily get brought down by the amount of things that you need to do if you were just starting out by yourself. But having that network means I sell property all over the country because of a network.
Yeah.
And then that old, we've got so many offices. We've got so many offices and we all speak to each other. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, you absolutely don't, because you know that you're going to get a salary at the end of the month. That's why you don't speak. Versus the self-employed guys, well, and until a property sells, you ain't getting paid.
Our motivation is very, very different. Our motivation is that we need to get paid, and we're putting a lot of sweat into what we're doing that could fall down. And I've made mistakes. I've taken on properties where I've looked at it and gone, actually, I shouldn't have taken this on, but I did because I'd already put money into the marketing and everything else. And like you say, it's about relationships. It's not about Keller Williams and Keller Williams and Keller Williams. It's about Paul and John, that if I have a property to sell in Marlow, and I don't want to stretch myself too thin, I know that I could pick up the phone to you going, I've got this listing, we could co-broker, we could co-list it, or actually I'm really, really busy. I'll just take a referral fee if you want the business, because I know you're going to charge the right fees. You're going to approach it the same way I'm going to approach it. I know that, the journey you're going to take the client on is going to benefit me. It's going to benefit you, because they're going to go, Paul, introduce us to John. He did an amazing job. Yeah, you're going to get more business out of it, because you're going to get the people coming to view the properties and everything around it. So it benefits everyone. And I'm not, I won't go, I should have taken that. I should have taken that listing in Marlow. It's only a 45-minute drive away, but actually a 45-minute drive away to try and sell a property sometimes is not the best thing.
Absolutely. And so on that, for example, Michael Bailey, obviously Keller Williams, right? Yeah. I've introduced him. It's not quite come off yet, but to 3 separate vendors. Yeah. Why am I doing that? I'm doing it because I want to know that I can actually trust the system.
Yeah.
Trust the person I'm working with. So that means I'm not going to embarrass myself in any way. Yeah. For example, I'm selling a house in Sheffield. Now, what do I know about Sheffield?
Nothing.
Zero. Right? No. Nothing. Yeah. But I'm going to sell that house in Sheffield. However, there are 3 people that have said to me, look, we've got a property to sell, not yet on the market. We're interviewing the agents or meeting up with the agents the following week. And I'm going, the only person you need in your life who is in Sheffield that I know of is Linda Stringer. Yeah. So Linda Stringer, and I said to Linda, listen, I'll pass these people over to you. Yeah. You can go and sell their houses. And I don't even want a fee. Yeah. I want to make sure that they are able to sell their house in order to buy the one that I have. Yeah. And I think that's it. But like this shift that we're talking about, technology, that you've mentioning, if we recorded this episode again in 3 years' time, what do you think will look completely outdated about how a estate agency operates today?
I would see the conveyancing process be more automated. I think I can see that'll be a big shift in that sense, and to speed up that conveyancing process. So there are companies who are trying to do it now, but they're not doing it right. They're offering the service, but we're still reliant on the old-fashioned, we're still reliant on the solicitor side of stuff. So I can see that changing quite a lot. And I also can see us being a more regulated space. And my biggest, do you know what I want to see? I was thinking about this the other day, and I think you mentioned about this with AML and everything. I think there should be a passport to sell a house. And that passport is built up of lots of items, lots of bits, which is a pre-survey, AML done, EPC, all the bits done, but it goes into a passport, which is a smart passport that follows it all the way through the journey. So the AML only needs to be done once. And it's done once and it's filtered through and everyone can utilize that AML.
Mm.
This is where technology is going to happen. It's going to speed up the process. It's going to take a bit of the heavy lifting off. And as you say, selling a house is probably 30% of the job, 40% of the job. The next step is getting everyone over to exchange, because there's so many moving parts involved. Reservation agreements, how do you lock in people into that 3-month conveyancing period where you can reduce it down to 30 days if you wanted to, but also have a reservation agreement in place that once the offer's put down, like in Scotland, like in America, you're legally obliged to move forward. Now, we have those processes in place, and I use Gazelle, but it's using a third-party company. There are sometimes faults. It doesn't work smoothly. Then you'll firefight in a little bit. But all these products work, and we're at a stage at the minute that they just need to be refined. And I think technology needs to catch up and go a bit further. So I can see the process being more automated. I want to see completions done within 30 days. We should be putting an offer and closing within 30 days.
Yeah.
And everything else needs to be put in place in front of it.
And
it can be done. I've bought and sold a lot of property in the States, and you see the process like title agents. 30 days, there's insurance policies in place, everything's covered off, and it's done that quickly because everyone gets pre-approved at the beginning.
And you know what's really interesting, what you're saying about that, is I have a 34-day exchange guide that I give to buyers and sellers, right? And basically saying, look, if your offer's accepted, you are agreeing to this 34-day exchange. Now, it doesn't mean to say that we're going to exchange in 34 working days.
Yeah.
What it does mean, though, is there is the process that you need to follow.
Yeah.
And we are good. You're agreeing to hit these milestones, right? Now, of course, it's all manual, but we're also relying on solicitors that don't charge enough as well.
Yeah.
And if that solicitor doesn't charge enough and they've got too many files sitting on the office floor, right?
Yeah.
Then we're going to struggle to get that done. But I think what you're saying is that, well, if when the technology catches up, because it's going to catch up and then go beyond, right? Those 30-day exchanges should really be, in today's age, shouldn't be manual. It shouldn't be the agent knows exactly what they're doing, so they've set the tone right from the beginning. So it means the rest of the sale is going to be pretty plain sailing because everything's front loaded, not like, oh my God, now there's all these problems when we get to survey. Yeah. We should already know this. I think it's once it catches up, a lot of people, a bit scary, but I don't know if a lot of people don't get a grip, there'll be a lot of people out of work. But as regarding agents and technology, do you think agents are going to be out of work because of technology?
No, because it comes back to exactly what I said from the beginning of our conversation. I've built a personal relationship with that person. And again, if I'm not I'm not part of the transaction. I'm the knowledge and the advice and the hand-holding I'm giving them. And it takes a lot. I mean, purple bricks, people selling on purple bricks, they get frustrated. They can't sell their house because they're doing the viewings. They're emotionally attached to the property. Me coming into someone's home and just looking around going, I'll list it for X, or me coming to the house going, before we list it, this is what you need to do to your property. They don't like that. But again, we're preloading, aren't we? We're front loading this. And the front loading is not just putting money into it. Front loading is what can we do to make this house sellable? If the house is cluttered, we need to declutter. I had a listing that was supposed to have taken on this week. He's phoned me up because before Christmas, he says, look, I'm gonna hire a storage unit and I'm gonna declutter the house. And he's messaged me yesterday, and he said, "I'm really sorry." He goes, "I just can't do this. It's just too much work, Well, there's professional services. We've got professional services within our business. My associate Kerry, she's got an award-winning staging business, and she'll go in and totally transform a house for that one day because we want to sell the house. We need to make it marketable. Yeah. So at the front end, I think the biggest thing we've got is that historically, sellers have felt they don't have to pay anything into it to get it sold. So they can the agent will sell their house for 0.75%, let's say, and they'll do the photos on the back of an iPad and sell it. So they don't charge anything. But if you now say to Mr. Seller, hold on, Mr. Seller, we need you need to spend, let's say, £1,500. That £1,500 includes this, photos, videos, AML checks, pre-sale survey. You know, it's a package thing, £1,500, and our fee is 2% to get it sold. They're going to go, well, I'm going to go back down to the high street 0.75%. But I think until they know that they have to do this, and there's a cost involved at the front, and you can package it and fix it, people will learn. And I think that this is the thing, and I've said this to you before as well. If we were regulated and every estate agent had to sell a property at 1.5% or 2% or whatever, or 10%, doesn't matter, then how do you pick your agent? Mm. Because then you're not picking them on fee, you're picking them on service. Well, actually, service is the first thing you should be looking at, and ignoring the fee and is what the service is. So we're not on a level playing field here. Mm.
And I listen, I agree. My minimum fee is 2%, right? I won't go below 2% to sell a house. I just won't, because I know how hard we have to work, but not just how hard. I know from my own experience, and of course you've got a world experience selling houses and property in different places, 22 places across the world. Mm. So you know from experience what good looks like. So it's not like you're having to smash a load of pipes with a hammer to work out which pipe is the one that's wrong. You're able to just like tap one pipe and go, right, I know exactly what the problem is here and how to deliver that result. And going back to your point on upfront marketing contribution, my upfront marketing contribution is £500. I will not sell anyone's house where they go, I can't. If they say to me they can't afford it, I'm saying, well, I can't sell it.
Yeah.
John, I'll pay your fee. I want you to sell my house. Yeah. That's great. But if we're not going to do this properly, I'm not getting involved.
No. And that's one thing, you know, I've started to do that now. I've started to include that upfront fee, or blended options or blended fees. And I mean, every client is different and in their situation. And you know, sometimes I'm listing because they've listed with another agent, so fee will always stick. They won't understand about increasing the fee. So you do a blended approach. You know, if I achieve over, my fee goes up. If I achieve less, my fee goes down. There's lots of things. But that upfront cost, you know, I got stung with that end of last year. You know, I took on a property, and I didn't charge an upfront fee. The photos, I spent a lot of money on professional photos and video. The client was very specific about their property. She rejected the photos. I then had to get a second photographer in to do the photos. It cost me a lot of money. Luckily, that time I put a fee in that said, if you withdraw your property, because I felt that the price point, again, she wanted it at a certain price. You know, it was a mistake on my behalf, right? I made a poor decision call on this listing. But I put the clause in, if you withdraw the property, you have to pay me marketing feedback. But now I've now got to go and get that marketing feedback. And that's the thing. You can put anything into a contract, but then you've got to go and get that money off that person rather than, like you say, pay up front. And I think you've got to be, one thing about being self-employed, it's very easy to take on the low-hanging fruit, the things that you think you'll sell anything at the beginning. And actually being, like you say, being very picky, stick to what you want to sell, stick to what you want, enjoy what you're doing. Enjoy what you're doing. I don't like selling flats. I don't believe in flats. I think the buying a property that you potentially don't own really, and you've got to pay service charges, I just don't believe in them. But people come to me and go, can you sell my flat? I need some help. Yes, I'll help you, but I don't market and go and say, right, I'm going to go and sell flats. I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy selling flats. So I don't list them. I don't really get involved. So that's what you should do. And your fee is a filtering mechanism. You know, it's another filtering mechanism, because if they're going to only want to pay 0.75%, you're going to have problems dealing with them, because they're going to expect the world, and they won't take your fee. They want 0.75%. There's 0.75% agents out there. Go and work with them. Go and list with Purple Bricks. Do it for free, but we'll be having a conversation down the line.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. It's and if they don't, well, that's great. That filter's done. The first property I sold was in the Isle of Wight. I took it because a friend referred me to a friend, and took it on, and I went, and how the hell am I going to sell this? And I sold it. I used Uber, I used all the other bits around me. It was, but I sold it, and I think there's a lot of luck went behind that. I look back at it now, would I have taken it on? I would not a chance.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And what would you say, right? Because clearly we both believe in the self-employed model. But what would you say to the agents out there who thinks this shift from traditional high street corporate agencies to self-employed is just, I don't know, a trend rather than a permanent change? What would you say to them?
Do you know what I just saw yesterday? One of my competitors, they're not competitors, another local estate agent who's been high street for a considerable amount of time, they're now recruiting self-employed agent model. Come and work with us. Their USP is that we generate 1,000 listing inquiries a year. They've got local brand awareness, which is great. They haven't got great reputation from what I've heard, but that's by the by. But what's happening, if it's not working, why are corporate high street now introducing it? Because they can reduce their overheads, put the pressure onto them. But the problem is that this is not going to work unless you have the support system and the processes in place. The mentality of agent, self-employed agent, the mentality of collaborating, sharing, supporting, looking after your mental health, looking after people's health. There's people around you who care. Keller Williams, our market centre, we've now got pastoral care within our business. So there's 2 agents who will be responsible for pastoral care, mental health, personal health, physical health, stress, anxiety. Will a corporate high street estate agent provides solutions for that and support for that? They're just copying the model, going, actually, we can remove the overheads of an employed person, but still keep the same model. That's not going to work. That's not going to work, because then that person who's self-employed is going to see what Keller Williams and see what EXP and see what Paul and John are doing and going, I want that. I want to feel validated. I want to feel that I'm running my business on my terms with support around me. And the difference is that local agent, you're still only going to sell properties in that local area. Whereas you and me, we know we can sell properties anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, and we can help people wherever they need help. That's the massive difference shift. I believe this 100%. So I think that's what's going to happen more. And as people see the opportunity, and people working in corporate will see the opportunity, the earning potential, and that actually give a shit about you, that's going to be the difference, isn't it?
Absolutely, because ultimately people are human beings, and all you need is soft skills and an insane amount of knowledge and know-how, and you'll be absolutely fine if you've got like that level of, I'm jumping in both feet, I'm doing it, and I'm never going to work for an employee in an employed role ever again. I think you'll be absolutely fine. Right, Paul Childs, mate, Keller Williams, thank you so much for coming on this podcast,
Always
mate.
good.
I really, really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thank you.
End of podcast. So before we finish, here is the uncomfortable truth that most agents are missing. If your competition is still locking sellers into long contracts, that is not a threat. That is your unfair advantage, because every long tie-in, every padded valuation, every clause designed to protect the agent instead of the seller is creating frustrated homeowners who feel trapped, ignored and let down. And that's not a market problem. That is demand. And if you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, I don't lock anybody into long contracts, that is good. Lean into it, explain it, expose it, and build your positioning around it. Because when everyone else is locking people in, freedom becomes the differentiator. Now, the obvious question is this: how do I communicate that without sounding bitter, defensive, or like I'm having a go at other agents? Obviously, that's what I do, right? But this is exactly where we're going next. In the next episode, we're joined by Rowan Waller, and we break down how agents can define their ideal client, tell the right stories, and market themselves in a way that attracts sellers who already know they've been burned without chasing likes or doing random shit. See you in the next episode.